The galaxy was old, very old. 12 different species had traveled between the stars for thousands of years. They had fought wars, made peace, and built a great galactic council to keep order. For 3,000 years, this council had worked. Species traded with each other. They shared knowledge. They settled their problems with words instead of weapons. Then the humans came. 200 years ago, a small ship from a planet called Earth arrived at the council station. The humans were young. Their technology was simple. They had only just learned to travel faster than light. The older species looked at them and saw nothing special. The humans were weak. They were small. They had no great armies, no powerful fleets, no ancient wisdom. The council allowed them to join. It cost nothing to be kind to such a harmless species. The humans thanked them. They took a few small planets near the edge of known space. They traded quietly. They never asked for power or influence. They never caused trouble. After 200 years, most species had forgotten the humans existed at all. This was exactly what the humans wanted. Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of the Hedda and watched the stars through the main view screen. She was 63 years old. Her hair had turned gray long ago. Her face carried the lines of a woman who had seen too much and said too little. She had commanded this ship for 40 years, and in all that time, no one outside the Terran Defense Fleet had ever seen it. The Hetan was a ghost. It moved through space without making a sound. Its hull was covered in special material that bent light and sensors around it. To anyone watching, the ship simply did not exist. It was invisible, silent, perfect, and it carried enough weapons to destroy a small moon. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Jiwan from her station. She was young, only 32, but she had sharp eyes and a sharper mind. "I am detecting unusual activity near the outer rim. Sector 7. Yuna turned. "Show me." The view screen changed. It displayed a region of space that was mostly empty. A few old mining stations. Some abandoned colonies. Nothing important. But now there were ships there. Many ships. They were gathering like wolves before a hunt. "I count 347 vessels," Jiwan reported. "Configuration unknown. They do not match any species in the Council database." Yuna studied the ships. They were strange. Their design was angular, aggressive, built for one purpose only: war. "Run a deep scan," she ordered. "Check the historical archives." Jiwan worked quickly. After a few minutes, her face went pale. "Admiral, these ships match records from over 2,000 years ago. They belong to the Velthari Dominion." The bridge went quiet. Every officer knew that name. The Velthari had been a powerful species once. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had enslaved millions. Then, suddenly, they had vanished. The Council believed they had destroyed themselves in a civil war. Their worlds were empty. Their fleets were gone. But they were not destroyed. They had been waiting. "They must have hidden themselves," Yuna said softly. "Preserved their fleet in stasis, waiting for the right moment to return. But why now?" asked Ensign Do-yoon, a young man at the navigation console. Yuna did not answer. She did not need to. The galaxy had grown soft in 3,000 years of peace. The Council species had forgotten how to fight. Their defense fleets were small, ceremonial, designed for parades rather than battles. The Velthari had chosen their moment well. "Send an encrypted message to Earth Command," Yuna ordered. "Full report. Priority 1. The message was sent. The response came within the hour. Observe. Do not engage. Await further orders." Yuna read the words and felt a cold weight in her chest. She understood the logic. The Hetan was humanity's greatest secret. If they revealed themselves, everything would change. The galaxy would know that humans were not weak. They would know that humans had been lying for 200 years. But the logic did not make her feel better. "Admiral," Jiwan said, "the Valkyrie fleet is moving." Yuna looked at the screen. The ships had formed into attack formation. They were heading toward a single destination. "Where?" Yuna asked, though she already feared the answer. "Orion 7, Jiwan replied. "The neutral trade station." Orion 7. Yuna knew it well. It was one of the largest stations in the sector. 3 million people lived there. Families, children, merchants and workers from a dozen different species. It had no military defenses. It was a place of peace. And the Valkyrie were going to destroy it. "How long until they arrive?" Yuna asked. 4 hours. 4 hours. Yuna stood very still. She thought about the orders from Earth. Observe. Do not engage. She thought about the 3 million people on that station who did not know death was coming for them. She thought about what it meant to be human. 200 years ago, humans had nearly destroyed themselves. They had built weapons of terrible power. They had used them on each other. Millions had died. Cities had burned. The Earth itself had almost become a dead world. The survivors had made a promise. Never again. They would build their weapons, yes. They would become strong. But they would never use that strength for conquest. They would never become the monsters they had almost been. The Hedda and its sister ships were the result of that promise. Hidden guardians. Silent protectors. They watched. They waited. They prayed they would never need to act. But sometimes, prayers were not enough. "Set course for Orion 7, Yuna said quietly. Jiwan turned to look at her. "Admiral, our orders say, I know what our orders say." Yuna's voice was calm but firm. "I also know that 3 million innocent people are about to die. The Council cannot save them. No one can save them except us." She looked around the bridge at her crew. Some were young. Some were old. All of them had sworn the same oath she had sworn 40 years ago. "I am not asking you to follow me," Yuna continued. "This decision is mine. I will accept whatever punishment comes. But I cannot watch those people die and do nothing. That is not who we are. That is not what humanity should be." The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Ensign Do-Yoon spoke. "Course laid in, Admiral. We will arrive 30 minutes before the Valkyrie fleet." Jiwan nodded. "All weapon systems ready." One by one, every officer on the bridge reported ready. Yuna felt something warm in her chest. Pride. Love. Hope. "Thank you," she said softly. "All of you." The Hetton tore Orion 7. It moved in perfect silence, invisible against the stars. 3 million people did not know they were about to be saved. The galaxy did not know it was about to change forever. And Admiral Yuna did not know that her choice would make humans the most feared species in the universe. But that was still to come. For now, there was only the darkness, the ship, and the quiet determination of a woman who refused to let innocence die. The Hedda flew on. The Orion 7 station was burning. Commander Taiwu stood on the bridge of the Starlight Ascendant and watched the destruction through the view screen. He was a Kethrani, a species known for their tall bodies, silver skin, and calm minds. His people had not known war for over 1,000 years. They settled problems with logic and patience. Violence was something they read about in old history books. Now violence was right in front of him, and he did not know what to do. The Valkyrie fleet had arrived without warning. 300 ships surrounded the station like hungry predators. They had not asked for surrender. They had not made demands. They had simply started firing. The station's shields had failed within minutes. Sections of the outer ring were already torn open. Taiwu could see the bodies floating in space. Families, workers, children who had been playing in the gardens that morning. "Commander," said his second officer, "a young Kathrani named Sumi. Our shields are at 30%. We cannot survive another direct attack." Taiwu looked at his small fleet. 4 Kathrani cruisers, 2 frigates from the Morvani Republic, 6 ships against 300. It was not a battle. It was a death sentence, but they had come anyway. When the distress signal from Orion 7 reached them, Taiwu had not hesitated. He had ordered his fleet to respond. It was the right thing to do. Now he was watching his people die, and he could do nothing to stop it. "All ships," he said into the communication system, "prepare to retreat. We cannot win this fight. We must survive to warn the Council." His officers obeyed. The fleet began to turn away from the battle. The Valkyrie ships moved to cut them off. Then the voice came. It was calm, clear, female. It spoke in perfect Galactic standard, the common language of all Council species. "This is Admiral Yuna of the Terran vessel Heta. All Valkyrie ships will cease fire immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply." Taiwu froze. Terran? The humans? He looked at his sensors. They showed nothing. No ship. No energy signature. Just empty space. "Where is that signal coming from?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander," Sumi replied. "There is nothing there." 20 seconds. The Valkyrie ships continued their attack. They did not stop. They did not respond. Perhaps they did not believe the threat. Perhaps they did not care. 10 seconds. Taiwu watched the empty space on his view screen. Part of him hoped this was real. Part of him knew it was impossible. The humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They had no warships. They had no military power. This had to be a trick. 5 seconds. Then the impossible happened. A ship appeared. It did not fly into view. It did not jump from faster than light travel. It simply became visible, as if reality itself had decided to reveal it. One moment there was nothing. The next moment there was a ship. The Heta was not large. It was perhaps half the size of Taiwu's cruiser. Its hull was completely black, covered in strange angular patterns that seemed to swallow light. It looked wrong somehow, like a shadow given solid form. But Taiwu barely noticed the ship's appearance. He was too busy staring at his sensor readings. "That cannot be correct," Sumi whispered. The sensors showed weapons. Dozens of weapons. Types that did not exist in any Council database. Energy readings that should have been impossible. The small black ship carried more firepower than Taiwu's entire fleet combined. More firepower than the entire Valkyrie Armada. The 30 seconds ended. The Valkyrie did not stop firing. The Heta opened fire. Taiwu had seen weapons before. He had watched recordings of ancient battles. He had studied military history as a young officer. But nothing had prepared him for this. The Heta's weapons did not shoot beams or missiles. They fired something else entirely. Lines of pure white light that moved faster than the eye could follow. Wherever those lines touched a Valkyrie ship, the ship simply stopped existing. No explosion. No debris. The ships were there, and then they were not. 1, 5, 10, 20. Taiwu counted without meaning to. His mind needed to do something, while his heart tried to understand what he was seeing. 40, 40, 40, 45, 40-7. 11 seconds. That was all it took. 11 seconds, and 47 Valkyrie warships were gone. The remaining Valkyrie fleet did something Taiwu had never seen. They panicked. Their perfect formation broke apart. Ships turned in every direction, desperate to escape. They activated their faster-than-light drives and fled, scattering across the sector like frightened animals. The Hedda did not chase them. Instead, the black ship moved toward the damaged station. Small doors opened along its hull, and hundreds of tiny objects flew out. Medical drones, Taiwu realized. Shield generators. Repair systems. The humans were not just warriors. They were rescuers. Commander. Sumi's voice was shaking. The human ship is hailing us. Taiwu took a deep breath. His hands were trembling. He was a Kethrani. His people did not know fear. But right now, looking at that small black ship that had just destroyed 47 warships in 11 seconds, he understood what fear truly meant. He also understood something else. Something important. The humans had saved them. The humans had saved everyone on that station. They had revealed their greatest secret to protect 3 million strangers. That was not the act of a monster. That was the act of something far more complex. Put them through, Taiwu said. The view screen changed. A human female appeared. She was older, with gray hair and tired eyes. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations, no symbols of rank except for small silver bars on her collar. "Commander Taiwu," she said. Her voice was the same one that had issued the warning. Calm, clear, almost gentle. "I am Admiral Yuna. Your ships have taken heavy damage. I am sending repair teams to assist. Do you require medical support for your crew?" Taiwu stared at her. This woman had just destroyed 47 ships. This woman commanded a vessel that could probably defeat the entire Council fleet. And she was asking if his crew needed doctors. "Yes," he managed to say. "Yes, we have wounded. Help is on the way." Yuna paused. "I would like to invite you aboard my ship, Commander. I believe we have much to discuss." Taiwu nodded slowly. He had 1,000 questions. Every Kethrani instinct told him to be careful, to analyze, to wait. But the humans had just saved his life. They had saved 3 million lives. The least he could do was listen. "I accept your invitation, Admiral," he said. The view screen went dark. Taiwu looked at the Hedda floating in space. Small, black, silent, deadly, beyond imagination. For 200 years, the galaxy had ignored the humans. That was about to change. The inside of the Hedda was not what Taiwu expected. He had imagined something cold, dark. A ship built only for killing would surely feel like a weapon. Instead, he found warm lights, soft colors, and the smell of something pleasant in the recycled air. A young human woman met him at the airlock. She was shorter than him by almost half a meter. Her black hair was tied back neatly, and she smiled when she saw him. "Commander Taiwu," she said, bowing her head slightly. "I am Lieutenant Jiwan, the tactical officer. Admiral Yuna asked me to escort you. Please, follow me." Taiwu followed her through the corridors. He counted the crew members they passed. 50, 60. They all nodded politely at him. Some smiled. None of them showed fear or hostility. They moved like people who had important work to do, but were never too busy to be kind. "How many crew serve on this vessel?" Taiwu asked. 212, Jiwan replied. 212. Taiwu's cruiser carried over 1,000. The humans had built a ship that needed far fewer people to operate. That meant more automation, more advanced systems, more technology that the Council had never seen. "The weapons you used," Taiwu said carefully. "I have never seen anything like them." Jiwan nodded. "They are called probability disruptors. They target the quantum bonds that hold matter together and dissolve them." Taiwu understood the words, but his mind struggled with the meaning. "You can unmake matter itself?" "Yes." Jiwan's voice was quiet, almost sad. "We can." They walked in silence for a moment. Tai Wu studied the walls. He noticed photographs hung at regular intervals. Humans in different uniforms. Humans standing in front of buildings. Humans holding children. Who are they? He asked. The families of our crew, Jiwan explained. We keep their pictures here to remember why we serve. Every person on this ship is someone waiting for them at home. Someone they love. Someone they fight to protect. Tai Wu felt something shift inside him. The Kethrani did not decorate their military ships. They believed in clean efficiency. But looking at these photographs, he understood what the humans were doing. They were reminding themselves that they were more than soldiers. They were people. Jiwan stopped at a large door. The Admiral is waiting for you inside. Tai Wu entered. The room was simple. A table, some chairs, a large view screen showing the stars outside. Admiral Yuna sat at the table with a cup of something warm in her hands. She looked up when Tai Wu entered and gestured to the chair across from her. Please sit, she said. Would you like some tea? It is a drink from Earth. I find it calms the mind. Tai Wu sat. He accepted the tea. It tasted strange but not unpleasant. Admiral, he said finally, I must ask you directly. How long have humans possessed this technology? Yuna took a small sip of her tea. Since before we joined the council. Tai Wu set down his cup. His hands were shaking again. That was 200 years ago. Yes, you have hidden this for 200 years? Yes, the single word hung in the air between them. Tai Wu tried to understand what it meant. For 2 centuries, the humans had pretended to be weak. They had allowed other species to look down on them. They had stayed quiet in council meetings, accepting whatever scraps of territory and trade the older species offered. And all that time, they had possessed weapons that could destroy fleets in seconds. Why? Tai Wu asked. Why hide? With this power, you could have demanded anything. You could have ruled the galaxy. Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were deep and full of memories. Come with me, she said. I want to show you something. She led him to another room. This one was darker. The walls were covered with images, but these were not photographs of families. These were scenes of destruction. Cities in flames. Mushroom clouds rising over broken landscapes. Bodies lying in streets. Children crying over dead parents. Soldiers standing among ruins with empty eyes. What is this? Tai Wu whispered. This is human history, Yuna replied. 300 years ago, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We built weapons like the ones on this ship, and we used them on each other. She walked along the wall, pointing at different images. This was a city called Hiroshima. 140,000 people died in a single flash. This was a war in a place called Europe. 60 million people died. This was a conflict over resources. 20 million died. She turned to face him. We killed each other by the millions, Commander. For land, for power, for beliefs, for reasons that seem foolish now. Tai Wu stared at the images. The Kethrani had never known such violence. His people could not imagine killing on this scale. The survivors made a choice, Yuna continued. We would never let this happen again. We would become strong, yes. We would protect ourselves. But we would never use our strength for conquest. We would never become the monsters we almost were. She touched one of the images gently. It showed a field of white crosses stretching to the horizon. Power without restraint is not strength, she said quietly. It is madness. Any fool can destroy. Any coward can conquer. True strength is having the power to take everything and choosing to take nothing. Tai Wu looked at the old woman beside him. She was small. Her body was tired, but her spirit was something he had never encountered before. It was a strength that came not from weapons or technology, but from something deeper. "You revealed yourselves today," he said. "You broke your 200 years of silence." "Why?" Una smiled sadly. "Because 3 million people were going to die. Because the council could not save them. Because we could." She shrugged. "There was no other choice that I could live with." Taiwu thought about this. In Kethrani philosophy, every action was analyzed for its logical consequences. Una's action had exposed humanity's secret. It had changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. From a purely logical standpoint, it might have been a mistake. But 3 million people were alive because of that choice. Maybe logic was not everything. "The council will demand answers," Taiwu said. "They will be afraid of you now." "I know," Una replied. "But fear can become understanding. Understanding can become trust. It will take time, but we have waited 200 years. We can wait a little longer." She turned off the display of human history. The room became peaceful again. "I did not want this, Commander," she admitted. "I wanted to serve in silence until I died. I wanted humanity to remain invisible. But the universe does not care what we want. It only cares what we do." She walked toward the door. "Come, the station survivors need our help. We have much work to do." Taiwu followed her. His mind was full of new thoughts, new questions, new understanding. The humans were not weak. They had never been weak. They were something far more powerful than anyone had imagined. They were people who had looked into the darkness of their own nature and refused to surrender to it. And now the galaxy would have to learn what that really meant. The Council Station was the largest structure in the galaxy. It floated at the exact center of known space, a symbol of unity among the 12 species. Its great hall could hold 10,000 beings. Today, every seat was filled. Ambassador Mina stood at the entrance and looked at the crowd. She was 43 years old, young for a diplomat. Her black hair was cut short. Her suit was simple and dark. She carried no weapons, no guards, no symbols of power. Behind her stood Admiral Una and a small group of Terran officers. They had traveled 3 days to reach this place. 3 days of silence, of waiting, of preparing for what was to come. "Are you ready?" Una asked quietly. Mina smiled. "I was ready the moment I took this job. I always knew this day would come eventually." She walked into the great hall. The noise hit her like a wave. Every species was talking at once. The Kethrani argued with the Marvani. The Thesari shouted at the Vendari. Screens showed news reports from every corner of the galaxy. All of them featured the same images. The Hatton decloaking. The Velthari ships disappearing. The impossible weapons that humans had hidden for 2 centuries. Mina walked to the central platform. She stood alone under the great dome of the hall. 12,000 eyes watched her. Millions more watched through broadcast systems across the stars. The High Speaker, an ancient Thesari named Kolvrin, called for silence. His voice echoed through the hall. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Mina of the Terran Confederacy. You have been summoned to answer questions regarding the incident at Orion 7 and the military capabilities your species has concealed from this body." Mina bowed respectfully. "I am honored to address the Council." The accusations began immediately. "The humans have violated the spirit of every treaty we have signed," shouted the Kethrani representative, a tall woman named Hai-Jin. "They pretended to be weak while building weapons of mass destruction. They are a threat to every species," added the Marvani delegate. "How can we trust a people who lie so completely? We demand sanctions," called the Zazari collective. "Restrictions on human movement. Inspections of their military facilities." Mina listened to all of it. She did not interrupt. She did not argue. She simply stood and let them speak until they had nothing left to say. When silence finally fell, she began. 200 years ago, humanity asked to join this council. We were small. We were young. We had barely learned to travel between stars. You looked at us and saw nothing worth respecting. She paused, letting the words settle. A Kathrani senator asked us a question during our acceptance hearing. She asked, "What do you bring to this alliance? What can you offer us?" Mina smiled slightly. Our ambassador at the time answered with a single word: peace. A few beings in the crowd laughed. The sound was bitter, mocking. Yes, Mina nodded. You laughed then too. A young species, weak and primitive, offering peace to civilizations that had maintained order for 3,000 years. It seemed ridiculous. She turned slowly, looking at every section of the Great Hall. But we meant it. We have spent 200 years proving it. How many wars have humans started since joining this council? None. How many territories have we conquered? None. How many species have we threatened, attacked, or exploited? She waited. No one answered. None, Mina said quietly. Not one. In 2 centuries, humanity has never raised a weapon against any member of this council. We have never demanded special treatment. We have never sought power or influence. We have simply lived in peace with our neighbors. But you had the power to do all those things, shouted the Thessari delegate. You could have conquered us any time you wished. Yes, Mina agreed. We could have. We chose not to. She gestured to the view screen behind her. It showed the Orion 7 station, damaged but intact. Emergency crews working to repair the damage. Medical ships bringing supplies. 3 million people, still alive. Yesterday, a threat you did not know existed attacked civilians under your protection. 3 million beings from a dozen species, families, children, workers, who had committed no crime except being in the wrong place. She pointed at the image. Your defense fleets were not enough. Your treaties offered no solution. Your 3,000 years of peace had not prepared you for enemies who do not respect peace. Mina lowered her hand. 30 seconds. That is how long those 3 million people had left to live. 30 seconds until the Velthari finished destroying that station and everyone on it. She turned to face the high speaker directly. Admiral Yuna made a choice. She revealed humanity's greatest secret to save strangers. She risked everything we have built, everything we have protected, everything we have hidden for 200 years. And she did it without hesitation. Mina's voice grew stronger. You ask what we bring to this alliance. We bring the willingness to sacrifice our own safety for yours. We bring weapons that could destroy worlds, held in hands that refuse to use them for conquest. We bring strength without cruelty, power without tyranny. She spread her arms wide. You call us liars because we hid our true nature. But what is our true nature? Is it the weapons we carry? Or is it the choices we make? No one spoke. The Great Hall was completely silent. We chose restraint when we could have chosen domination. We chose silence when we could have chosen glory. We chose to protect you yesterday when we could have simply watched you die. Mina lowered her arms. If you want to fear us, that is your right. If you want to restrict us, sanction us, contain us, you can try. But I hope you will consider another path. She walked toward the Kathrani section of the hall. Commander Taiwu was seated there, watching her with careful eyes. Commander Taiwu met our people yesterday. He saw what we can do. He also saw who we are. Ask him whether we should be feared or understood. Taiwu stood slowly. Every eye in the hall turned to him. The humans could have let us die, he said. His voice was calm but carried clearly through the Great Hall. They could have kept their secret and watched 3 million people burn. Instead, they saved us. They saved everyone. He looked at Mina with something like respect. I have studied many things in my life: war, peace, strategy, philosophy, but I have never studied anything like the humans. They are not what we thought. They are something new, something we do not have words for yet. He sat down. Mina turned back to the council. We do not ask for trust. Trust must be earned. We only ask for the chance to earn it. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. Watch what we do, not what we could do. She bowed once more to the High Speaker. Humanity stands ready to serve this council as we always have. In peace, in restraint, in hope. She walked off the platform. Behind her, 12,000 beings sat in stunned silence. The galaxy had heard humanity speak. Now they would have to decide what to believe. 6 months had passed since the day the head had decloaked. The galaxy was different now. Not dramatically different. The stars still burned. The trade routes still carried ships. The council still met and argued and made decisions. But something had changed underneath it all. Something important. The Velthari Dominion had tried to build an alliance against humanity. Their ships had scattered across the sector after the battle at Orion 7, and their leaders had sent messages to every species they could reach. They spoke of the human threat, the hidden weapons, the lies that humanity had told for 2 centuries. No one listened. The footage from Orion 7 had spread to every corner of civilized space. Billions of beings had watched it. They saw the Velthari attacking innocent civilians. They saw the council ships failing to protect them. They saw a small human vessel appear from nothing and destroy 47 warships in 11 seconds. And then they saw what happened next. They saw medical drones flying to help the wounded. They saw repair systems stabilizing the damaged station. They saw Admiral Yuna refusing to chase the fleeing enemy. They saw humans working alongside Kethrani and Morvani, and a dozen other species to save lives. The Velthari called humanity a threat. The footage showed something else entirely. Commander Taiwu returned to Kethrani space a changed being. He spoke to his government for 3 hours. He told them everything he had seen and heard aboard the Hedda. He showed them the memorial wall with its photographs of human families. He described Admiral Yuna's calm voice and steady eyes. His final words spread across the Kethrani networks within days. The humans could have conquered us at any time, he said. For 200 years, they had the power to rule the galaxy. They chose not to. That choice is more frightening than any weapon. And it is more admirable than any treaty we have ever signed. The Kethrani began sending requests to Earth. They wanted to learn. They wanted to understand. How did humans train their officers? How did they teach their children about war and peace? How did they build such terrible weapons and still refuse to use them for conquest? The humans welcomed them. They shared their history openly, including the parts they were not proud of. They showed the Kethrani the museums filled with memories of human violence. They explained how close humanity had come to destroying itself. We are not naturally good, a human professor told a group of Kethrani students. We had to choose to be good. Every generation has to make that choice again. That is what makes it meaningful. Other species followed the Kethrani example. The Morvani sent diplomats. The Thizari sent scientists. Even some of the species who had called for sanctions began asking questions instead. Ambassador Mina worked tirelessly. She traveled to dozens of worlds, speaking to governments and ordinary beings alike. She never promised that humanity was perfect. She never claimed that humans would never make mistakes. We will disappoint you sometimes, she told a crowd on a Thizari colony world. We will make errors. We will fall short of our ideals. That is what it means to be alive. But we will always try. We will always reach for something better. and we will always stand with you when darkness comes. The Council eventually passed a new accord. Not a treaty of restriction, but one of cooperation. Humanity agreed to share certain defensive technologies with species that requested them. Medical advances, shield systems, early warning networks. The weapons themselves remained secret, but the knowledge of how to protect against threats was given freely. Admiral Una retired from active duty 3 months after the incident. She was 64 years old. She had spent her entire adult life in service, and she was tired that her replacement was Captain Do-hyun. He had been an ensign on the day of the decloaking, the young man who had set the course for Orion 7 without hesitation. Now he commanded the HFY with the same quiet determination that Una had shown. The job is simple, Una told him on her last day aboard the ship. Watch, wait, protect those who cannot protect themselves, and pray that you never have to fire those weapons again. Do-hyun promised to remember that the HFY returned to its silent patrols. Its cloaking systems engaged once more, and the ship vanished from sensors. To the galaxy, it was invisible again. A ghost. A shadow. But now everyone knew it was there, and that made all the difference. Stories began spreading through the galaxy. Some were true. Some were exaggerated. Some were complete fiction. But they all carried the same message. There were guardians in the darkness. Silent protectors who asked for nothing and watched over everyone. A Morvani child asked her mother why humans were so strong. Because they choose to be kind, her mother answered. Anyone can be powerful. The humans chose to be good. A Kithrani elder wrote a poem about the HFY. It became famous across his world. In silence they move, in shadow they wait. They carry the fire, but never the hate. When darkness falls and hope grows thin, the quiet ones come and light begins. Even the species who still feared humanity began to change their thinking. Fear did not disappear, but it transformed into something else. Respect, awareness, a recognition that the humans were different from any species. The galaxy had known. They were not conquerors. They were not saints. They were something harder to define. Dangerous and gentle. Powerful and restrained. Capable of terrible destruction and endless compassion. They were human. 1 year after the decloaking, a ceremony was held on the Orion 7 station. The repairs were finally complete. 3 million beings gathered to remember what had almost happened and celebrate what had been saved. Instead, Ambassador Mina attended. Admiral Una came out of retirement for 1 day. Commander Taiwu was there, now promoted to Admiral himself. A monument was unveiled at the center of the station. It showed a simple image, hands of many different species, reaching toward each other across a field of stars. Beneath it were words in every language of the Council. We're stronger together. Una stood before the crowd. She looked older than she had a year ago, but her eyes still held that same steady light. I did not want to become famous, she said. I did not want humanity to be noticed. I just wanted to save some lives. She smiled slightly. Sometimes the universe has other plans. She looked up at the stars beyond the station's transparent dome. Somewhere out there, the Velthari are still hiding. Other threats exist that we have not discovered yet. The darkness is vast, and we are small. She turned to face the crowd. But we are not alone. 12 species standing together, watching out for each other, reaching across the empty space to hold hands in the night. She touched the monument gently. That is what humanity brought to this alliance 200 years ago. Not weapons, not power, just a promise. We will stand with you. We will protect you. We will never let you face the darkness alone. Una stepped back from the monument. That promise still holds. The crowd cheered. Beings of every species, together and somewhere in the darkness between stars. The head kept its vigil, invisible, silent, patient, guardian for a galaxy that finally understood why humans were feared, not because of what they could destroy, because of what they chose to protect always.